So our featured speaker today is Gary Rubens. He is passionate about helping kids who otherwise couldn't afford college go to college. Gary and his wife Jennifer have granted more than $30 million to kids who couldn't afford to go to college. He loves this organization called the Washington State Opportunity Scholarship. I wanted to give you a little flavor of that organization before we sit down with Gary, just to give you an idea of why he supports the organization and what his passion is. And here to tell us a little bit more about the organization is the Executive Director, Naria Santalucia. Please give her a warm Seattle 4 welcome.
Thank you so much. I just take this off. Good afternoon. Hi, I'm Naria, and I am so pleased to be here. Actually, my college journey started with Rotary. I received a scholarship from the Rotary Club in Federal Way, and without scholarships like that and others, I would never have been where I am today. And so I'm so honored to be able to lead a scholarship organization that is launching the dreams of thousands of people with help like Gary, from people like Gary, who is on our board, an incredibly generous donor. Can you advance the first slide? So, the next one. So Opportunity Scholarship is an incredible partnership between the state of Washington and industry leaders. It was launched in 2011 with the idea in mind of we have all these great tech sector, engineering, healthcare positions in Washington state, and we're recruiting many people from around the country and the world to come here, but what about our students who graduated from school in Washington state? Can we make this a win-win solution so that they are poised for those open positions? To date, we have raised $200 million in public and private support. Every dollar that we raise is matched by the state, and Gary was responsible for 20 million of that, 40 when you double it, right, with the math. So that's incredible, and I can't wait for you to hear his story. That means that we're going to fund 15,000 students by 2021 with scholarships of up to $22,500, as well as really critical support services like mentorship, opportunity to tour industries, case management support from our program officers. And I just wanted you to have a chance to meet one of our students who is basically, they're our best spokesperson people. So if you could just cue up that video, this is hot off the press.
I always wanted to help people. It was ingrained in my family that you would always go to college, but one of the big questions for myself was, how am I going to afford college? As a high school student, you may not understand the gravity of what debt from college actually is, but as I graduate and I reflect on all the things I've been a part of, I really look at, what has allowed me to get to the position I am now. I'm Malachi Williams. I'm an engineer and a WSOS scholar. When I was a kid, my dad used to take me to the air shows down at McCoy Air Force Base. While I didn't know what an engineer was at the time, I was still exposed to what engineers build, what engineers design. And I think that's key as you, grow, and that kind of plants the seed into, for me at least, to figure out what I wanted to do and what I wanted to become. I knew that I wanted to attend UW, and I wanted to study engineering. What attracts me to engineering is not just the problem solving, but the impact that you leave on people. And so, from the transportation industry to the aerospace industry, you're working to make a better place for everyone. I would say the proudest moment for my parents was not only when I received my acceptance letter, but also looking at my award letter that I received the WSOS scholarship. That's when I realized, okay, this is a start to where I won't have to work 40 hours a week alongside school. I can really start to work on projects I want to be a part of. I can focus on keeping my grades up so I can get internships. WSOS provided me the opportunity to intern at some of the top companies in the world, Boeing for 3 summers, and then Tesla for just this last summer. In the STEM fields, applying what you're learning is the hallmark of what makes an engineer great. And applying what you're learning in class is key. It's what sets everyone apart. It's what allowed me to go from Boeing to Tesla. I really hope that students are able to understand the importance of being a part of WSOS, and that it's more than just a scholarship, that you're a part of a family, a cohort of all these different students that want to work on amazing things. And I think one of the key problems, at least it was for me, was who to contact and really just who to connect with to figure out, where I want to go and what I want to do. Without WSOS, I wouldn't be where I am today. I just want people to understand that anything's possible, really.
And Malachi is one of 6,800 students we've awarded so far. We have majority students of color, majority women. I love what you were saying. Majority of students who were the first in the family to go to college. And as we look at, I've been thinking like all of you about Hurricane Harvey. And one of the things that's really amazing about this program is that we're creating those problem solvers of the future, those engineers that are going to build the dams, build levees. So I'm really grateful for the chance to chat with all of you, be the advanced team for Gary. And we would love to, if you could visit our webpage and check out the mentorship opportunities. I know many of you mentor students who are in the K through 12 system. Maybe they're inspired by STEM or healthcare. Encourage them to apply for the scholarship. It opens in January. We are looking forward to your assistance with that. And without further ado, thank you so much.
Nice job. Naria, thank you. Gary, come on up. As I was trying to figure out how to describe Gary, and I've known Gary for, I think, a couple of years now, it's really hard to pin a label on you, Gary, because you have done so many different things in your life. I know a lot of people in the audience are interested in learning more about your business expertise, your business acumen. So we're going to touch on that. We're going to touch on philanthropy. So in researching your life, your story, and just in talking with you over the years.
It's all fake news.
Thanks, Gary. We're off to a good start. Oh, so anyway.
Go Cougs. By the way.
Yeah, okay. Do you want to start? Okay.
No,
I was going to save that as a surprise because last week, Gary, I was making fun of the Huskies and why people would want to go to a Husky game. We'll get to that at the end of the program because he has some exciting news when it comes to WSU. So let's talk about your childhood. As I was listening to podcasts and listening to interviews, and you were a self-motivated kid. Take me back to your childhood. Your family didn't have a lot of money, but you somehow had this drive inside you.
Yeah, so my mother or father did not go to college. My older brother or sister did not finish high school. So the path, when you're the youngest looking up, you're like, We're also on food stamps getting food from the food bank. So while we always had a roof over our heads, so I always say we didn't have it as bad as some people have it today. We certainly didn't have anything extra. So I kind of said, if I'm going to make anything out of my life, what am I going to do? And I think as the youngest maybe, or just being analytical, you sit back and you watch and you associate this action with this result. So what I saw is we weren't educated and this was the result. We were poor, and being poor is no fun. So I said I should do something different and I should try and get educated. So I did good in school, high school. I also worked full-time, 40 hours a week all through school in restaurants. And I took vocational classes at various local schools like Lake Washington Technical College, Renton, and so forth, just grasping at straws at what I was going to do after high school. So I applied to WSU, got accepted, and quickly learned that my family had no money or means for me to go. And now there's cool programs like WSOS, and there's this whole thing called the internet, so it's a little easier to research opportunities than back then. So I did not have a chance to attend college, so I went to work. So I think part of that survival just comes from you when you're poor, no one's gonna give you anything. I mean, no one's gonna make your life wonderful for you. You have to take action. You have to go do it. So I said, what am I gonna do?
So you got a job.
I got a job.
You got a job, and you had an attitude that your bosses really noticed. Talk about that first job, that company,
Sure.
Aircraft Interiors Manufacturing Company.
Yep.
And how did that form the kind of person you are today?
Shape me. I think, well, I had a job over the summer after high school building houses, construction. That was very sporadic and very hard work, climbing on roofs, digging ditches and so forth, which is fine. I think hard work is good, but I also knew I should do something else because I was pretty mechanical. So there's this aircraft interiors company in Issaquah that I kept going by. I heard they paid well, they had good benefits, they gave good bonuses, so I set my sights on that company. And I went in the same day every week and asked them if they had a job. And I always got the same answer, no. But I kept going in every day, same day, or on the same day, same time. And pretty soon they're like, man, you are persistent. The only job we have is a cleanup boy. And I go, I'll take it. And they're like, don't you want to know how much it pays? I said, I assume minimum wage. And they said, yep. And I took the job. And so I started off cleaning floors in the machine shop, sweeping up greasy metal shavings, cleaning toilets, emptying garbage cans, and so forth. But through that, I would always be early and always stay late. And my boss started to notice I was dependable. And then the other employees would also notice I'd get my work done early, and they would say, hey, can I have him help me do this thing? And we built aircraft interiors, so there's a machine shop and there's a fabrication shop. So a lot of working with metal, saws, and so forth. So I started helping the other fabricators do their jobs, and then they noticed. So it was like an apprenticeship role, right? So they just started to notice I was dependable, and pretty soon they wanted me to do that more than they wanted me to clean up. So I advanced, but I had a supervisor there, and I won't ever forget, like when you hear somebody praise you, it's like it feels good. So I don't think enough bosses or owners praise their people enough, but he would go around on Fridays and say, hey, I need people to work overtime. Who wants to work overtime? And he'd ask this guy, and this guy, oh, I can't, I got to do this or that. And he'd ask this guy, oh, I can't, I got to do this or that. And he'd go, Gary, I know you'll be here. And he would just move right past me. I mean, I did have a social life, but not much, because I was trying to earn money. So any opportunity to get paid overtime was huge for me. So I literally sacrificed a lot of social time with friends, and they're going out drinking and this and that, which really doesn't lead to much good. So I worked instead. So that supervisor had a big impact on me because he believed in me.
Was that the boss that said you have an owner's attitude?
No, that was a different job.
Different job,
Yeah,
okay.
so
talk about the different job, and then all the while you're saving money like crazy because you know you want to start a business.
Yeah, so then that aircraft company, that owner passed away, and they sold the company to somebody in California. So I got a job building contract furniture, and similar situation. I applied for that job, and that was building metal, lighting, and furniture, and the owner interviewed me and had me, I was in dressed up as good of a suit as I had at the time, and he's like, do you know how to use a router? And I said, yes. I go, where's one at? And I grabbed it, and I had metal shavings flying all over as I'm doing this thing, and he goes, okay, I'll think about it if I want to hire. And I said, look, I need a job. I'll work for free for a week. At the end of a week, if you don't like me, you don't have to pay me.
And it worked.
It worked. He hired me. I was there 8 years, but during that time, he said to me one time, he said, Gary, you have an owner's attitude. You treat my business just like it's your business. You're here early, you're here late, you do all this extra stuff. That kind of really struck me. Am I an owner's? Because my dad was always self-employed, and we're poor, so I associated being self-employed with being poor. And I'm like, there is no way I am ever going to be self-employed. That is just suicidal. And I want a steady paycheck, benefits, all this stuff. So, but he planted that seed. Anyway, it turns out this owner couldn't come through, and then I had that seed, so I started my own company after that, my first one.
So you were able to save some money. How much were you able to save to start that company?
I think I had saved up about $20,000, which at the time, this was 80s, was a lot.
Yeah.
But I was also very efficient with my money, so I didn't need a lot to live on. When you're poor, you become efficient.
Yeah. So talk about the company that you founded then. And then this turned into just an amazing explosion of online businesses that you started.
Yeah.
Talk about that first company that you founded.
So this first company built, similar to the one that I worked at, built contract furnishings for hotels. It was called Architectural Details in Kirkland, and we made contract lighting and furniture for architects and designers. So I started that business, and over the course of the years, we built it up to about $2-3 million in sales. It was a nice business, you know. I had a house, I was earning a living, everything was good. But around 1998, somebody said, "Gary, you should do something on the internet. You're pretty smart, blah, blah." And I'm like, I know how to set up databases and stuff. I'm not a programmer, but what should I do? You should do something on the internet. So I'm like, what would I do? I'm not, you know. And so I thought, well, the only thing I know is maybe I should try selling lighting online, because designers can't find what they need. They all have these giant resource rooms in their firm where they gotta look through thousands of catalogs. So if I put catalogs online, which doesn't sound very novel today with Amazon, but you know, how do we put data online and make it searchable for people to buy? They can buy it and get it delivered and have all this happen. So I started a company called lightinguniverse.com, which then became ATG Stores. I started in '99 I incorporated in July or about August of 1999, and I said, I didn't know how long it took to build an e-commerce company. I mean, we built custom lighting, big chandeliers for hotels in like 6 or 8 weeks, fused glass, all this stuff. So I said, it can't take more than 90 days to build an e-commerce site, can it? I mean, what's taking so long? You don't have to do any glass or anything, plating. So I hired a company, and I hired a bunch of college students, and we started calling manufacturers, and that's where it was very interesting, because a lot of manufacturers said, we don't think this internet thing's gonna be around in a year. This is just a fad. And I heard a few other things like, you're effing crazy, and then click. I mean, all sorts of stuff. I was called all sorts of names and this and that. But I said, designers don't buy from stores anyway. They buy from catalogs. The internet's just a catalog, so how can I do this? So I finally got a few manufacturers to agree, put their products together. We had to build the content management system. The database went live. So we actually went live in 90 days with 7,000 products, which was quite a feat. And we started selling. So that led to us surviving the dot-com crash barely, which I don't have time to tell that story, but barely survived. And then ended up adding plumbing, hardware, furniture, getting the business to about $140 million a year in sales, 300 employees, and 4 million products online. And I sold to Lowe's December 29th, 2011.
For
A lot. Over $100 million.
So I think from a business standpoint, a lot of people are wondering, how do you grow a company? How do you grow a company and keep the integrity? How do you grow the company and keep its focus? What were the big lessons that you learned as you grew this small company into a very big one?
Well, I think one of the interesting things is when I saw the title of this talk today. It said something like self-made. And I don't think there's anybody that's really self-made. So I think the key is surrounding yourself with people that are smarter than you are and that know things that you don't know. If you have two founders that know exactly the same thing or have the same skill, that's not good. You want to if you're good at, if you're a great developer and writing code, who's going to sell? You need a good salesperson, or you need a good marketing person, right? You can't have the same skills. So for me, I think success is surrounding yourself with people that are really smart. And so I was very fortunate. I built teams of really smart, dedicated people, and that's the only reason I'm sitting here today having this talk.
You say that you got to know some investment bankers when you got the idea that at some point you may be selling one of these companies. I've always wondered how those deals go down. There were several companies interested, Home Depot and Lowe's. When companies are sold, what was the biggest thing that you learned in that process?
So just to clarify, I sold my manufacturing company in 2007 so I could focus on the e-commerce company. And then over the course of, in 2006, Home Depot came in sort of unsolicited. I'd always been talking to venture capitalists, private equity people who would see our name being listed somewhere, Puget Sound, Business Journal's fastest growing company. We're on the Inc. 500 list of fastest growing companies a couple years. And so they start to notice and they want to get involved in companies that are growing fast. So starting those conversations early on in having friendly conversations is always good, even though you don't want to sell. It's good to have those people know about your business early on. So I was talking to them all along. 2006, Home Depot came along and said, hey, we want to buy your business. And I said, I don't know if I want to sell my business. And then they, I went to Atlanta and they said I was doing about $30 million a year in sales at that point, not making any money because I didn't operate the business for EBITDA. I operated it for growth. So we'd operate about a 0 to 1% EBITDA. So I could pour all the cash back into growth opportunities, but they handed me a term sheet for $26.5 million. And that's a lot of money. And that's a really hard thing to say no to. That's like a lot of Coronas on the beach somewhere. But I also knew that we were growing our business 75 to 100% each year, so I thought if I wait, it's probably going to be better. And I wasn't really ready to sell. So I forget the rest of your question, sorry.
That was good. The other big thing that I think people wonder about is, as people start their own companies, when do you pay yourself? When do you not pay yourself? And how do you structure the company? Can you just very briefly break that down?
Sure. I mean, I definitely, when I've started both of my companies, I didn't pay myself for a few years. I planned on not being able to pay myself. I don't think it looks good if the founder's paying himself a big salary and you can't afford to pay your people well. So the other thing I did is, just a side note, I tried to make my early employees equity owners in the business because I needed them to have the opportunity, just like I did, for something big in the future. So I think you just have to look at your obligation to any investors you might have, your obligation to your employees to be a good example, and then paying yourself a reasonable salary is okay. They know that you work hard, you're there early, you work on the weekends, you work in the evenings. So, but I think there's some excesses that happen out there these days.
The sale to Lowe's allowed you to do several things, including start a foundation with your wife, focus heavily on helping young people go to college who otherwise couldn't. And you started angel investing. You've invested in 84 companies in the Seattle area since 2013. I'd like to pull the curtain back on that a little bit. How do companies get funded? When somebody comes to you and says, hey, I've got a great idea, walk me through what that conversation looks like and what the pitch looks like.
Sure, well, that's kind of a long process. A lot of people will they'll have an idea, and whether they come from a mid-level manager at Amazon or Microsoft and decide, hey, I don't want to work anymore, I've got this idea, I've got a little money saved up, I want to go start this, I can get some developers and put this idea together to a certain point, and then they'll start working the angel network around Seattle, and having meetings with people, talking about their idea, and deciding what does the next 12 to 18, 24 months look like for their needs for funds to get it to the next stage. And so they'll open a seed round of funding. Sometimes they do friends and family first, asking all their family, and their friends and family invest in the person, not necessarily the idea. I also invest in the person, but they have to have an idea as well. So they'll go around, circle around. There's various angel groups in Seattle. I belong to, like Alliance of Angels and so forth, Keiretsu. But primarily the deal flow comes pretty rapidly when they know you're an investor. So I was having 5-6 pitches a day. They generally take an hour, so it was a lot. And then you got to go through the idea, do your due diligence, and decide if you want to invest and if the terms of that investment are good.
Is there a question that you routinely ask these people who are starting up companies? Like, is there a question that every single pitch you ask this question and see how they respond?
I don't know if there's one, but I do like to gauge whether the founder's really in. Do they have any money invested in it? Do they have anything to lose? Or if it doesn't work, then they'll just go back to work at Amazon. But they want to take my money, which I worked hard for, and risk it on their idea. And if it doesn't work, I lose everything and they go get another job. So I like to gauge their level of passion and commitment. Are they going to ride this horse as far as it will go and then get off and walk? Or are they just going to give up when things get tough? And I don't want to invest in anybody that's going to give up. I always tell people, when you think you've had enough, you still got more. Keep going. And if they haven't put like their own money, mortgage their house, sacrifice something, then why should I?
So you've invested in real estate for a while, and I think I read that at 21, or heard on one of the podcasts, at 21 years old, you built your own house, or had your house built, right? So is that as far back as your interest in real estate goes? Because we were talking, I don't know, a year and a half ago, you had the most expensive condominium in Western Washington listed for sale in Bellevue.
And it's still for sale if anybody wants to buy it.
We have a strict policy of not soliciting from the podium, Gary. I know. How much is it?
13.9, but I'll take less.
Somebody get my checkbook. I've always been fascinated about real estate deals because everybody seems to be an expert on real estate, but very few people really make it big in real estate. What's the biggest lesson that you've learned as a real estate investor?
It's easy to be an expert in a rising tide. I remember in 1996 investing in the stock market. Every single day I'd put money in and I'd make a ton of money. I thought I was really good, but I wasn't, because it was just going up no matter what. And I think right now it's the same with real estate. I mean, if you're selling, it's easy to make money, but if you sell and have to buy, I don't know that how that's going to work out. So I think it's an interesting time. I've shifted a bit away from residential single family to more commercial office building, because I think that will, I've different reasons around that as far as longer term leases and so forth. And I look for opportunities where the rents are below market and I can make improvements to those properties and then increase not only the rent roll, but also the equity value of the property.
One of the things I wanted to ask you about is, when people look at someone like you, the question sort of always comes to someone's mind that, what is their secret to success? And what I'm hearing from you is that hard work, always trying to learn, always trying to treat people with respect. And then when I heard one of the podcasts, you talked about what your schedule was like before, and I think that's really interesting, the transformation that you've gone from. You would get up at 4:20 in the morning, you'd be at the gym by 5, you'd work out for an hour, you'd be at the office by 7, and that was just a hard driving, sounds like just secret to success. Now you've changed a little bit. Talk about the start of your days now.
Well, I think it's a part of that structure I really do miss, actually, because it allowed me to do those certain things that are important, like starting out your day with exercise. There's a lot of benefits to exercise, right? You look good, you feel good, it reduces stress, you sleep better. There's all sorts of benefits to that. So starting out my day with that and that structure in the morning was great. Once I left, sold my company and then left, it's like, I think you go through this period like of figuring out, now what? I don't have to be anywhere. I can sleep in if I want. What's that like? And I think now, though, recently I have blocked out because I was realizing that I don't have to do anything I don't want to do now, which is I feel very, very blessed. I mean, I'm so lucky. But it allows you to get unstructured, and I don't think that's healthy. So now I block out 7 to 10 a.m. every day for, I call it my workout block. It's on my calendar as workout block. So I don't take any meetings unless it's super important before 10. It allows me to, I have a personal trainer twice a week. I run twice a week. Saturday and Sunday I wake surfed. So I'm trying to fit some level of fitness in every single day. And then I do appointments with either startups or philanthropy or real estate. So I've kind of got these buckets of, and then I do a lot of networking at night. There's a lot of meetups. I try and be very active in the community, try and connect people to other people, and just provide service in that aspect as well.
And there's self-reflection, meditation in the mornings and things like that. What I think is really cool about your story, Gary, is that you took what was a challenge, what could be perceived as a negative in your youth. You couldn't afford to go to college, and you turned it upside down, and you've turned it into an incredible gift to all these kids who now can go to college. All those Garys who couldn't go to college are going to college now.
Yeah.
How does that feel?
Well, it feels awesome. So the reason I do scholarships, because there's a lot of students out there that are low income, underprivileged, that have been high performing students. They've got amazing grades through adversity, riding the bus for several hours a day, having to work, help their families, and they still get a 3.8. 3.9 in school, and single parent homes. I mean, it's amazing, yet they might not be able to go on and get a college education or a post high school education. And I'm really all about employment. I'm not about scholarships, but without scholarships and education, I think employment's really hard to have a living wage that with good benefits and so forth. So I do that because that was me. I tried hard, but I didn't have that help. And so I didn't get to college. But I am proud to announce in January, I applied and started at WSU. So I am a freshman right now. So, it sucks.
So I know our members don't want me to say it, but can you say go Cougs for everybody?
Go Cougs.
I think that's fantastic.
Although I will have to say, both my kids went to UW, and I'm on the board of UW Bothell. So I'm kind of this hybrid.
Okay, fair enough. Gary, I just want to say thank you. You are such an incredible member of our community. You're an inspiration personally. You're making the world a better place. A lot of rich people don't do anything to make the world better. You're not just a rich guy. You've got such a big heart, and you're just trying to get to a better place as a human being, and it's just so fun to watch you. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
And we have time for a few questions out there, too.
Gary, thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
You're welcome.
When you do these 6 interviews on average a day with startups, how often have you made up your mind in the first 5 minutes?
Much of the time. It's pretty easy to tell. Number one, I try and pre-screen ideas out that I don't invest in. So I won't invest in anything that I don't know about. So for example, healthcare and medical devices, which I think are great, but I can't contribute anything besides money. So if I can't make an investment and make connections or somehow help that business with knowledge that I have, and I don't want to invest. So that helps right off the bat. But the rest of it, it's surprising. I can tell pretty fast.
Thank you for sharing your story. Can you tell us what you're studying at Wazoo?
I am hoping to get a social science degree. A lot of people ask me, I was getting a business degree, and I go, no, I think I get that. But What I want to know more is about people, so psychology and history and so forth. And in the last election made me very aware of the fact that we are all different and all have different beliefs and thoughts, and one is not right or wrong, we just don't understand.
To the left.
Thank you. I'm interested to know, I guess if I had to say a one-word description of your life, it sounds like the ultimate in discipline. So how does your family fit into that? How did you do the work-life, family-life balance?
Well, I wish I was as disciplined as you think I am, but thank you. Family is really important. I have 2 kids, 24 and 21, and they are important, and they did sacrifice a lot, but I try to put my kids first. That's why I worked out in the morning, so that I was there to be able to go to their games and go to their events as much as possible. If I wasn't traveling, I was always in attendance. So family is really important. Finding balance is hard, though, when you're in a startup type situation. You have to sacrifice. And so finding the balance of working really hard so you don't have to work hard forever, I think, is the key. Because you will never get that time back with your kids or with your family.
All right, one final question.
We all hear about the benefits of education, and there are so many. But when you were starting up and making all these big risks, did you ever stop to think that if you had gone to business school, you might have known too much to take those risks?
Yeah, I mean, I've thought a lot about what I didn't learn in school, and I still am a big supporter of higher education, because I think I had to work, really hard to become more well-rounded in a lot of ways, and I didn't have a network. So I think there's a lot you learn, and maybe some of it is not as scrappy as you might learn. There's street smarts and book smarts, right? So I think some combination of that has to come in. So I wish I had learned some of the things I think I'm learning now by being a college student that I didn't learn then.
Gary, thank you.